On this episode of the After the Timeout podcast, in partnership with the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association, we welcome Sergio Muro, head boys basketball coach at Maine East. We talked to Coach Muro about building a program, taking over a program where he played, running a feeder program for your high school, and much, much more. As always, thank you for listening to the After the Timeout podcast. All right, as always, Coach, we're going to start out with the opening tip. First and foremost, give us a little background on Maine East and what you guys got going to start the year. You guys have had a good start to the year. Before we get to the second part, but yeah, just give us a little background, kind of what you guys look like. If you want to shout out any of your guys, coaches, anything like that, let our listeners know what you guys are all about.
Yeah, we're off to a solid start, 4-2. 4-2, with some nice wins early in the year against some really high level programs. So we're off to a 4-2, and I think I think more importantly our boys, our team is just we're very scrappy. I mean, you probably watch some in the layup lines, you're kind of like, man, this is not going to go well for the Blue Demons. And next thing you know, you got guys flying all over the court, sharing the basketball, and play with a lot of energy and intensity. So I think that's off. I think that's off to we're off to a really solid start. But we also know that it's an early season, and we need to maintain our values, our integrity, our the process of trying to be a competitive team. So we're just trying to get better every day and maintain what we're doing right now. So it's going to be a shout out to everybody from Maine East, anybody rooting for the Maine East Blue Demons here.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Coach. Yeah, I've checked out some of your scores. I've seen video here and there. It's hard when we're all coaching to try to catch everybody's games.
I know.
Especially live. Sometimes you got to dig to find it too and all that stuff. But
yeah. So
the second part of the question is, you're the fourth coach there in 23 years. That's a pretty stable, right, coaching environment, especially when you look at the landscape of coaching now, when you have guys taking one job and then they left, before the season even starts, or something happens late in the season before the season starts and there's a coaching change, with admin or whatever. What do you think has, kind of at the different schools you have, what leads to that coaching stability, and maybe what you see at Maine East that's helped that process?
Yeah, I think if a coach stays at the school for quite some time, I think one thing I've noticed is, and through maybe at Maine East, and this is kind of what I think why coaches are stable in certain programs. I think number one and foremost, the players. I think it's the players that keep coaches at that one spot, right? I think Coach Bailey has stayed at St. Pat's for 29 years because he's always had good players and players who love basketball and love the school. So I think it's very similar. I think it can be very similar to Maine East. That Maine East, whether they're not the maybe most skilled or talented players, right? And maybe it's not that. It's also the characters of the players at Maine East that maybe has stabilized that. I'm a former alum at Maine East. So I kind of get a good idea of what the players are there, and understand the challenges that they may face. So I really think that why it's been stable is because of the type of kid and the type of players that we get.
So I think that leads perfectly into our first question for you today. And we, obviously you came from St. Pat's, which is a very successful program. So it may be a little bit of a two-parter is, what made you want to leave and return home to Maine East? And then what are some of the challenges of coaching where you attended?
Yeah. It was really tough to leave St. Pat's. It was really tough. I loved my role there. Coach Bailey, he made it known that it was everybody's program, right? Not just his, that, he gave you so much input and included you and included me and everything. And I think when the job opened up, some people did, call me and say, "Hey, man, you should look at this a little bit. You should investigate this job here." And I did. Um, I did investigate it. It's like, it is my former high school. I grew up in the community. I never left the community. Still live in the area. Um, so I think that's kind of just what jumped out to me. I did, so was that, you know what, Mater, I know the community, I know the type of kids they get. Let me give this a shot here, and then secondly, some of the challenges, I think, returning home. I guess you always, I think when somebody always comes home, you get everybody wants a piece of the pie, right? Like, you get all the phone calls. Hey, man, and it's good. It's bittersweet. Like, you got a lot of support from alums or basketball people. Hey, let me know if I can help. And so I think the challenges I've been facing, is just really just managing expectations, right? And trying to change the culture. I think also number two would be like changing the culture of a program that in the past couple of years have struggled to win some games a little bit. So I guess adjusting a new culture and setting new expectations and standards to players that maybe not had been used to these high standards has been a challenge, but the feedback and the response has been awesome to these standards that we're trying to build there.
All right, so I want to build on that. You talked about your standards. I want to talk about kind of your goals, right, for your first year. And maybe basing them off those standards. So let's go first. What are those standards that Maine East is about? And then how do you gauge that? Not necessarily wins and losses, right? But the intangible stuff, or if it's X's and O's, certain stats, whatever it may be.
Yeah, the standards are, how do we set the standards? I think you involve players with that, right? I think we have to talk to the players individually as a group. We have these team meetings. Like, what did they see? What do they want to get out of this year, right? And set realistic expectations. So standards and cultures have to be players included. Players included. I don't think it can't be coach dominated, right? Certainly the coach is going to have their own set of standards and expectations, but I think it's important that we mix that a little bit with players' expectations and standards, and all work together to kind of hold that culture and standard right there. And number two, I think you talked about goals. I don't know if I have a specific goal, but I just told myself, I want to come here and build a culture and build a basketball program where, like, hey, you know what? Maine East is playing at this Christmas tournament or Thanksgiving tournament. I want to go watch and play. I would love to build this program where, you know what, people go see Maine East play in the summer, or they just go catch a game and they just see how hard and how unselfish we play, right? For those basketball people to kind of just say, you know what, those Maine East kids, they play hard and they always play unselfishly, right? I'll use St. Pat's, right? Those St. Pat's players, they always play hard, right? They always share the ball. They always can shoot the ball, So I guess that's kind of the culture I'm trying to build. And I think that's a kind of unique way to measure it. Measure it is like by basketball people coming to check us out and just say, really, like, man, these kids play really hard. They're fun to watch, they're fun to watch. And I just think that, once you establish that culture, then it just opens up new doors, a little bit. I'm not focused on winning 20 games or 30 games. I'm focused on establishing the culture and maintaining that culture. Because I think once you do that, then the good things happen, right? The upsets happen, the regional championships happen when that culture is established and you try to protect that culture.
So let me follow up on that then, right? We have these standards and the culture. For you, what is the process, maybe when an athlete isn't meeting those standards,
off the court, right? On the court, wherever it may
Mhm.
be in the community. How do you go about having those conversations and helping that player kind of realize, hey, this is different than it has been before. This is where we got to be.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question. Each player is different, right? I think we all know that to push the buttons or get the most out of certain players, we kind of need to know who they are and what figure out what really motivates them, right? For some kids, they want to go and play college basketball, right? That's a to me, you use college basketball as an example of like, hey man, if you do this is not going to fly at St. Benedictine, Elmhurst, all right, or we talked about Truman State, one of those Division II schools. So I guess using real life experiences could be one. I think number two, or I've done this in the past. I go and talk to them outside of the basketball court, and I just let them know like, hey, you're not living up to the expectations that we have set. You know, we have them written down, right? We call I got this from Coach Bailey, the standards of excellence, right? And here it is, man. You're not reaching these expectations here.
I want to follow up on that then. Like, so you talked about being player led in those standards. Like what do you narrow it down to? What do you try to focus on? Is there certain like categories, right? Or is it just you kind of let the players develop it when you're in those meetings, and then you kind of add your own and you mold it all into one? I'm always interested to see how that process works because we all work with kids and things like that. Sometimes that's a hard process, right? In
Yeah,
these days and days, because they don't,
yeah.
they might know, but they might not know how to communicate it or what it looks like. So how do you go about that process when you first started it out? I've always find that interesting.
Yeah, yeah. When I first started it out, it was simply as hey, what didn't you like last year that you guys want to hold yourself accountable with? And they don't give the players, they give kind of very high school response, and the coaches are there to kind of like, okay, let's figure this out. So I guess an example is um the standard was, you're on time to practice, right? It's actually one of the standards that we have right there. You're on time and you're on time ahead of time. Um, so that was a simple one that they kind of brought up to my attention, is like, we want to be held accountable for being on time and starting on time, and so forth. Um, and then a unique one that they came up one was it was like number 10. It's called finish the race, right? They always thought like coach, we can have a good start, and we want to just make sure we came up with finishing the race, right? Because we talk about how the season can be long and what can kind of hold us from reaching our goals, right? And then there can be distractions, all sorts of just hurdles that can kind of make the team struggle a little bit. So we talked about how we need to overcome that and finish the race.
So, coach, let's talk about that one kid. He doesn't get it. He's not buying in. He's there's all myriad of issues, whether it's lateness or absence or attitude or just not committed, not on the same as the authors like to say. He's not rowing the boat in the same direction.
Mm-hmm.
What's the next steps with that kid?
I you know, um, I think the next step is pretty easy. All right, rotation, right? How much more is he going to be in the rotation, right? You find that out. You move on to the next kid, right? After work group, certainly, we work with the kid, we push the kid, we let him know this is not working right here. Okay, I think you can always get a player's attention once you start messing with their playing time a little bit. Maybe it's playing time, right? Maybe he doesn't start this game, right? If he's a starter, maybe he doesn't start this game. Or if he's usually getting what I call 3 or 4 runs a game, maybe he's now only getting 2 runs a game. You know, So I think I think that would be kind of the next step. Is you know what, maybe he's being detrimental to the team. We're gonna get him out of the rotation until he figures out in practice, until he lives these expectations, until he shows his teammates, not necessarily me, but shows his teammates that, you know what, he's ready. He's ready to get back in that rotation.
So moving on just into, some things you've learned in your St. Pat's experience. If you could narrow it down, obviously we could talk about dozens of things you learned, but what are 2 or 3 things that you took with you from there to Maine East, just as the first part of the question?
I think the number one thing is preparation, right? The amount of preparation that goes into the season. And then once you're in season, the preparation of that longevity during the season of preparation. And by preparation is getting the teams, knowing the other teams' personnel and what they do, and having a foundation and putting our players in a position to know what they're doing on the court and execute the court. So I think preparation was the number one thing that I really took out of being on the Coach Bailey's staff, is the amount of time that we spend as a staff preparing our kids to know what's coming ahead of the season, whether it's through X and O's, academics, or just simple as being fatigued. You hit that, your players start to hit that wall of, while they're hitting this wall, what they may need a day or two of rest, or maybe we need to get in the weight room or do something else different in practice. And then number 2, another thing I think I learned that from St. Pat's too is, like I think it's player relationship. Having a relationship with the players was very vital. Player relationship with players there was very important to our staff, of building that relationship with kids there and maintaining those relationships. So one thing to build those relationships, but you also have to maintain those relationship with the players right there. I think player relationship right now, coaching, it's probably a top 3 skill that a coach must have to be a successful coach, is that player relationship aspect.
So I want to take the preparation aspect to like the player level, right? Obviously a lot of times I think, when you change coaches and you come from a program like St. Pat's, maybe the players don't realize the preparation that they have to have as well. And I'm always trying to think of new ideas to help the players, prepare too, because to me, preparation builds confidence, right? If you can see it, if you have done it, then you're going to be more quick to, just do it instead of react to it. So what are some of the things you help your players prepare, whether it's video, whether it's just having those conversations? Could be preseason, could be in season. How do you help your players on that preparation aspect as well?
Yeah, that's awesome. It's kind of funny because we our first game of the year against Naperville Central, or sorry, it was that first week. We had a Thanksgiving tournament. I think the number one thing the players kind of look at me like, what? We're gonna do that? Like, we call it a walkthrough. They kind of, what's a walkthrough, coach? I'm looking back, you know what a walkthrough is? Like, this is, I think a lot of teams do this, so that walkthrough, right? That game day walkthrough, was kind of a culture shock for our guys. They loved it, so that walkthrough was a pretty funny one where we kind of looked at each other like, what do you mean? Like, we're really gonna have 10, 20, 30 minutes of kind of like practice, like, yeah, on game day. And then number 2 is I think in terms of 2 and 3, like in preparation, was a morning shoot around, right? Get in the gym at 6:30 in the morning to shoot. Shooting is a big part of what we do. And I think there were a little bit of, I think there were a little bit of culture shock in terms of preparation was like the scouting reports, when we would game plan, we'd pick one day out of the week and during practice, like, hey, this is how Niles North plays, right? They deny everything. They're up the line, they're on the line. It's pressure for 4 quarters. This is what they do right there. In terms of preparation, right there is just getting familiarizing the team with the other team's style of play and their personnel. It was a little bit of a culture shock with all the stats. They were just amazed of, wow, this player has been scoring this amount, So I guess those are two things that kind of come out of the top of the head about preparation.
The other thing I wanted to hit on in that question with you was just the amount of head coaches that have come from Pats, and we've talked to Pat's assistants about this before, whether it's yourself or Matt Monroe or others. But for you, what did you learn from the program about assistant coach development, and what are some things you've taken to kind of help your assistant coaches develop?
Yeah, I think including them in the process, right? I was always included on everything, on everything, and giving them a responsibility, and having them run with it. And I think more importantly, if I give them a responsibility, I think I have to follow. I have to follow their game plan. Certainly if I give my assistant coach the duty on the bench is, hey, let's keep an eye on matchups. If you think we need to change matchups in our man-to-man, you let me know. Let's not be quick to it, but let's keep an eye on it to see about matchups. So right now, my assistant coach is really handling matchups. He tells me, hey, we need to switch this. Let's switch it, right? We are switching this matchup and so forth. Or maybe we're just adjusting our pickup point right there. So giving the assistant coaches leeway and thoughts, and utilizing their skills and what they're good at, so the coach would allow me to kind of take segments of man-to-man offense during practice, and it just put less pressure on coach to, he has to be that one voice all the time. So that second voice, third voice, during the middle of the season where, players may be tired of the head coach's voice, is kind of when the assistant coach's voice may kind of take over right then and there. And I think the other thing too, coach, not from an X and O standpoint, like, and I tell people this a lot too, like, I didn't take a shortcut to get where I'm at, and I kind of learned, I think that's the same Pat's thing from the assistant coaches there. I've coached every level there, but the head varsity coach at St. Pat's, right? I've coached freshman B team for 2 years, freshman A team for 3 years. And then sophomore / varsity assistant for, another 4 or 5 years there. So like, I just felt like, I didn't take a shortcut to get to where I'm at. I wasn't one of those where like, I thought it was too good to coach a freshman team or a sophomore team. I just worked my way up the ladder. And I think it was very similar like that for the other assistant coaches too, who became head coaches. I believe they coached at every level there too as well.
So I want to transition a little bit into your day job, right? Obviously, you're a counselor as well. And what are the things that coaches can learn from the counselor aspect that could help? Right? I talked about it earlier. It's just it's the world changed a little bit for kids, especially after COVID, social media, right? Things that we didn't really have when we were players, right? We didn't have to worry about any of that. So what are some of those aspects you can take and bring to coaches, or some advice for coaches to bring to help players or help assistant coaches, right? Anybody in your program.
Yeah, I think from my counseling experience, I think sometimes we coaches, we get so caught up in the season that we forget that student athletes are humans and have feelings too, right? and that there are days where they're going to be bummed out, um, or they are going through something that we simply just don't know, and we didn't know that. Wow, I never thought this kid can be struggling with, you know, handling their emotions, or maybe this kid's actually going through some family issues. So I think if I'm putting my counseling hat on, is we have to be very understanding. We have to be very understanding of student situations. Every student athlete has different circumstances and different resources, to kind of help them get, in the basketball game. And it's simply like one shoe doesn't fit all, and this is kind of an equity term, right? If I buy 10 pairs of shoes for 10 players, um, and I buy them all size 9, that's not really fair, right? So one size shoe doesn't fit all for everybody there, and I think we just need to understand that, that at the end of the day, student athletes do have feelings, and they're humans too. I think sometimes we push their buttons too much, and it means well, and so forth. But sometimes we have to kind of just sit back, relax, not relax, but we have to sit back and understand student situations and outcomes.
I want to go to a little more basketball related. We call this halftime adjustments. This is going to be a little bit more general. Okay, so you have the things you like to do, right? You're doing in a game, but you come to halftime, right? And okay, what we got going isn't working today, right?
Mhm.
What are you more apt to do? Tweak what you're doing within your systems, keeps doing some of the same things, or maybe hey, we gotta make a change and do something completely different, whether it be pick and roll or this and that. Because I know some coaches, they're like, hey, we're gonna stick with what we're doing, we're gonna do it better. Um, but or some coaches like, hey, well, we got to change this. So where you kind of lie in that spectrum?
Yeah, I like, I really like, I think I'm more of a simple adjustment is more. So for instance, like, you know, um, hey, maybe right now we're switching every screen, and all of a sudden, what, they're rating our switching scheme. We're not going to switch a down screen anymore with this player coming off a screen. Or an example, an adjustment yesterday was, our pickup point, right? Instead of picking up at half, we're going to pick up at the white volleyball line. That might make a little bit of a small adjustment, a small adjustment that makes a kind of a big difference. So I don't try to reinvent the wheel at halftime or in the game, um, but I do like simple adjustments, like adjusting pickup points. How what we have a in-game report sheet that one of my freshman coach keeps hand of, and one of the questions is like, what plays offensively have been working for us, right? Is it our ball screen action, or is it our screening action for our shooters, and so forth. So we use the in-game report to kind of decide what our adjustments should make. We keep stats of how many layups are we giving up, or paint touches, or paint scores. And that could be an adjustment of our foot positioning on our closeouts, right? Typically, we want no paint, no middle, um, and so forth. So I'm a big believer in just a simple adjustment, one or two simple adjustments that could maybe result in a big outcome.
I think me and Coach are probably going to want to get that sheet from you for sure. See, just to
Sold.
see, get some
Sold.
ideas. I mean, it's always good to have ideas. That's one of the fun parts of us doing this, is we get ideas and things we can use for other
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I
It's
wanted to
right
kind
here.
of
Yeah,
follow. There you go. Look at
yeah,
that. I wanted to
yeah.
follow up a little bit on that. Then we asked Coach Wences this last week when we had her, the head girls coach from Yorkville. So you have your system, right? Let's maybe in game you're going to make a minor adjustment, but as you're going along and you're kind of realizing some things aren't working, like during the season, and you can't keep doing it, right? Because
Hmm.
it's not successful. When do you kind of look at that and realize, well, maybe now we gotta try to do something different, keeping some of the same concepts, right? But like say we're switching everybody all the time, and then we tried to switch. We're not switching down things that quite didn't work, or whatever it may be. Just a random example. But when do you look at it and say, well, maybe we need to look at this and try to make a correction or even do something different because maybe the players aren't capable of doing it, or it's just not working for who we got in the system right now.
Yeah, that's a great question. I had written down in my notes that I want to put everything in our system right before we have those 2 weeks of practice. That last week of practice, I want to have all this stuff in. And I mapped it out like each day. We're gonna install this, we're gonna install that, so that by the time like November 18th, I think it was that Friday, everything was in place. Right. This is our zone offense. This is our man-to-man offense. This is our ball screen offense. This is our press break. This is our defensive schemes right here. And I had it down in my notes that we would make adjustments. I think right now right now we're thinking keeps very I guess gray might be the word. And then by Christmas time, at the end of Christmas, our Christmas term, we're hosting a Christmas tournament or a holiday tournament. At the end of our holiday tournament is kind of where I would look back and maybe sit down with the coaching staff and ask ourselves, what do we need to change? What's working for us? What do we need to tweak? What do we want to take out? Is there sets that we need to get for somebody specifically? And defensively, what do we like right now that we're doing defensively, and what do we don't like what we're doing defensively that we can kind of switch. So I would probably say after Christmas, I think we would be 14 games in, 14 to 15 games in after our holiday tournament. So that would kind of be the time where we would kind of look to, either A, add more flavor to the system, or B, we're subtracting some stuff.
Well, I really like what you said there too about subtracting, right? Because I think sometimes that's more of it, right? Like, hey, I thought this was going to work, but it doesn't work for who we got. So let's just take that out and work on the things that we're good at. I think sometimes subtraction is the key as opposed to, right? Because all coaches fall into the trap. Hey, we can get this, we get this, we get this, and it's just that every year is different. So I really like the subtraction part of it too.
Simple is best. Simple is best.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in, we're gonna talk about simple is best. I'm gonna skip to the question that you guys sent me about what is my favorite shoe, right? And listen, people laugh, but I'm just a general. I love a good old pair of white Air Force Ones, right? Or white or all black Air Force Ones, right? It's simple. I'm comfortable in them. They're nice. You can't go wrong, So certainly, I love a good pair of Jordans or two, but simple to me is best and more.
So we wanted to get into a unique thing, and I don't think we've really talked to any of our guests about this, but just your experience with feeder basketball. There's hundreds of thousands of coaches out there that run high school programs that have a feeder program or a connection to an underlevel program that, kind of helps them get their student athletes ready for high school. But, for your experience, with feeder basketball, what are some things that make a feeder program successful? And then for a program that's looking to start one, maybe what's your best advice to that head high school coach on establishing that?
Yeah, Coach, this is a great question, and I might get a little bit off topic a little bit at first, but I will get to that question. So Friday night we played Niles North, and it happened to be my former high school coach, Coach Olson. He was my high school coach at Maine East High School. And he's kind of probably the reason why I got into coaching. I thought when he was coaching at Maine East, he just really inspired a lot of us to just, he just inspired us, right? He was a really good motivator and made basketball fun for us. I had good coaches at Maine East when I was a player. So Coach, I think he's a little bit tired of feeder, and Coach Olson, I'm 18 years old. It's my first year out of high school. I'm at a community college, and he had remembered that I told him I want to get into coaching, and he had called me I believe it was on a Wednesday. He just called me randomly, coach. Or he didn't call me coach. Serge, do you want to coach? Yes. So, okay, I got a feeder gig for you tomorrow at 7:00. And I'm like, coach, I'm unprepared. Like I've never coached at this point. I'm unprepared. So I started coaching. My first coaching gig was coaching Niles North feeder 7th grade team. And Coach Olson was the one who taught me how to just become an effective coach. And like at first, he just threw me in the fire. Right, here's the team. You know the system. You know the way I like kids to play. You know expectation. Here's what I want you to do with the 7th grade feeder team right there. And I just took off with it. So I did feeder basketball at Niles North for under Coach Olsen when he made the switch to not to coach at Niles North. Um, so he gave me my first I guess coaching job with feeder basketball, and I think I did it there for 4 years, 3 to 4 years, or 2 years, 2 to 3 years. I can't remember, but I had the time of my life coaching those guys, and still really have still keep in contact with some of those players there, who are done with college now. It's kind of crazy, but I was 18 years old coaching 7th graders feeder basketball right there. So my experience with feeder, it's great it's great in so many ways. For me, it gives opportunity to develop coaches, right, and keep coaches around the program. As we know, one coach it can't do it all, right? We need to get everybody in the community involved with players and student athletes. So the feeder system, I think, is it plays a integral part in the school success. It really does. And it develops the culture at an early age, the good habits, the skill work, the the how do I say this, the work ethic, and what it does, it includes it just, when you're a young student athlete and you see like the guys playing in the varsity game, it's almost like an inspiration they're really a role model. The varsity guys are really a role model for those 7th and 8th graders. Like, man, I want to be like, my point guard, and I could be like Daryl Gotti. Um, I think that plays an integral part right there. So the feeder system is very important, very important, and it's actually a little. I think nowadays in the public school setting, it's a little bit tougher to run. I think there's some you have to follow some district policies. There's some district policies that you need to work around. But once we figure that stuff out, it's going to be an integral part of what we do. As playing, starting basketball early age, it's kind of important.
So, just a different take here. So, you know, you got a coach that's been a head coach for a lot of years. They can fall back on experience, and obviously you've been coaching, right? But you take that 18 inches over, as they say, right, to the head coach from being in assistant. What are some of the advantages of that, of being a young coach, and that you can utilize that maybe older coaches don't have? It's a different twist on it. What do you think? Having a fresh start and then starting your own thing can be an advantage over maybe someone who's been somewhere for a long time, or kind of done the same thing.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Coach Bailey's up there, but like you never thought like he'd be. He had all that young energy. I guess an advantage I think I would have for being a young coach is just I guess the player relationship part, maybe. Probably the player relationship part, being able to relate to kids outside of basketball, right? Outside of basketball, like knowing, like being able to relate to them about music or movies or other topics that are trending right there. So I just think that player relationship part, maybe. that player relationship part that, we could just relate to stuff outside and inside of basketball and so forth. I don't want to go and say I have a little bit more energy than an older coach. I think that's false. I think there's a lot of older coaches that still have a lot in the tank and show the enthusiasm. So I'm going to go with player relationship.
And then just to build off of that a little bit, this is actually a more X's and O's question. We really haven't done too much X's and O's with you, but when you started, how did you go about deciding what you wanted to do X's and O's wise? Obviously, you came from a program that was very 1-3-1 heavy, and we talked to Coach about that. So, how did you go about, maybe taking some things you learned as an assistant, but then also putting your own twist on it and then matching it with your guys?
Yeah, I think number one is familiarizing myself with players and their personnel and what they feel comfortable and effective in doing. What can they do? I get the question all the time. Hey, are you bringing the 1-3-1? And I'm like, no. I mean, as of right now, I'm not. Can it eventually come? Maybe. But right now, we are a man-to-man defense that switches everything. No and ifs or buts. Right. It is what it is. We are switching everything, right? So I think blowing player personnel and taking a really good look at it. I was fortunate enough to have a summer with our guys, and that was a good telling of what players can do what on the court right now. Playing a very similar style of offensively from Pats. With some dribble drive stuff, going downhill, turning the corner, going downhill, ball speed, ball reversals, spacing the floor, a lot of driving kicks, a lot of drive kicks, downhill drives, stampedes, we call them, and so forth. So I think just, the X and O standpoint, I just always have in the back of the head, right? When you're an assistant coach or you're coaching high school, you see a lot of basketball. You see a lot of basketball, and I would just always say like, man, and I'm scouting, right? I would always say like, hey, I really like how now North really gets after it defensively. I really, I want to keep that in the back of my pocket, right? Or I really like how the Paul Prep switches everything. I really want to keep that in the back of my pocket. I really like Bennett's baseline out of bounds. I'm going to keep that in my back of the pocket. So certainly I grabbed a lot from St. Pat's, but I think I grabbed a lot from a lot of programs too. Just little stuff that I saw of how they played and actions they run. Just putting that in my back pocket right there as well. Right, it's the same, right? Coaches steal everything from each other all the time, right? I mean,
you're just swiping stuff here and there, and you make it your own, right?
I can
do that,
yeah,
right?
Seriously, yeah. So I just take a little bit out there. There's a lot of good basketball in Illinois that I take little things from here and there. Like I like this how they run their baseline out of bounds. I like I really like some of Niles North's quick hitters, or St. Pat's offense, or the Paul Preps, switching. There's a lot of stuff I really like out there from other programs.
So I want to go back. You mentioned relationships a lot, but I want to go back to okay, you get the job, and you talked about getting to know your kids and know personnel, know them as people. What was your process to start that, and then how do you continue that throughout, their career, whether the season, they're a freshman to a sophomore, because there's obviously a relationship with a freshman is different than a senior, right? Just because they have more experiences with communicating with adults and coaches and things like that, they're learning. So kind of talk about your process of building those relationships and continuing it throughout the years that they're there and throughout the season, whatever.
Yeah, I'm a big. I have this thing that I call it in between time. It's something I just kind of made up and went with it, right? Players don't know it's in between time, but I know that it's in between time. And here's what I mean by in between time. I think relationships are built in between time. Practice is over. I'm racking the basketballs. I'm walking the basketballs to the closet, and a player happens to walk with me, right? Or I ask a player, hey, can you help me put this basketball stuff away? And right then and there, I'm getting to know that player, right? Hey, what do you like to eat? What do you eat, right? Or tell me a little bit about your school experience right now. How's your senior year going right now? Okay, what do you do at home when you're not here on the basketball court? So like just in between time, right? If I'm fortunate enough to bump into them in the hallway, right then and there, hey, how's your day going? Or if I see that they have AirPods in, pull out your phone. I need to know who you're listening to right now, and I'm gonna add it to my playlist, right? So that's just those little minutes in between where we're not actually on the basketball court is where I try to build a relationship with them. And it's probably most likely have nothing to do with basketball. It's just simply the fact, and maybe this is a counselor thing too, just getting to know their background and their family, their family culture, right? And understanding that right there. So I call it in between time, right? You're walking to put the basketball away. You pick a player, can you help me do this? If I see him in the hallway, right? Just again, hey, what's going on? How's your day? Tell me who you're listening to these days. So I think that's kind of how I build a player relationship. I try to be authentic as possible when it comes to building a relationship, right? I never want to be, I'd never want to try to be somebody who I'm not on as a coach. I'm just trying to be who I am and who I am as a person. I think being authentic is a key also. Not trying to fake it, not trying to fake it, but just keeping it real with players that I want to get to know them. I want to get to know them.
I love the idea of the in-between time. That's one of my favorite segments that we've had in a while. That was excellent. That's a great idea for coaches out there, that in-between time. So as we get in to our final two segments, the first one we call 30-second timeout. This is kind of your platform to kind of talk about whatever you want, any subject you're passionate about. Could be basketball related, could be family related, could be anything. We have guests turn it on. Todd and I ask us a question. So it's kind of your segment to talk about whatever you want.
Okay. Well, I love the questions you guys asked me. What would I be doing if I wasn't a coach? Right? Was that one of them, right?
Yeah.
I tell people this all the time. If I probably wasn't coaching, first of all, I have no idea what I would do. Like I really don't, right? Basketball is all I know. But if I wasn't coaching basketball, I think I'd be a full-time DJ. I love music. I love playing music for people at events. I love playing music at family gatherings. I love playing music. I think I would probably be a DJ for sure. And then the other thing is I like to ask people what TV shows they watch now. There's at least one or two times during the week where I try to put after a long day, I try to put I need to watch a TV show to get my mind off things, right? Stimulate my mind right here, So I'm a big TV show guy. I love rewatching episodes of Entourage on HBO. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that Entourage, but yeah, they're 30-minute episodes and they're funny, they're hilarious. So I love rewatching those shows to kind of just get me in the mood and lift my spirits up and crack a laugh, and so forth. And then from a basketball standpoint, I love the NBA League Pass. I'm a big League Pass guy. Just to the night's ending, put on a game of one of those Western Conference games, watching some NBA League Pass games. What are the teams you like watching? I like asking people, talking about, I think a team that lately I've been watching is the Sacramento Kings. I mean, they're pretty fun to watch. And the Memphis Grizzlies obviously are really fun to watch too. So those are just a couple of things I like.
All right, let's get into our quick hitters here. I'm gonna add one. You mentioned to be a DJ, right? What would your DJ name be? That's a key thing if you're gonna be a DJ. You got to have a name.
Yeah. I think lately I've been using the name DJ Ice. I don't know why. I just like DJ Ice.
There you go. Hey, you got to have one, right? You got to. That's part of the brand, right?
DJ Ice. Yeah.
I like that. Next one. All right, what is the date you can put up holiday decorations? Is there a specific time? Get like you can't do it before Thanksgiving. You got to do it after. What is the date for holiday decorations?
Yeah, it's the Wednesday before it's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
All right.
Usually that Wednesday, I usually try to find time to put up the Christmas tree up right there. So it's usually that Wednesday. I think this year was actually it was actually the Sunday. Just because first year head coach, we got games Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I didn't want to risk that, you know, I don't want to get all stressed over like I got to do the tree. But in the years past, it has been that Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
All right. So then we're going to go with, since you just talked about music, I want you to think about your favorite kind of music that's maybe under listened to by other people.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple things. I've been lately very like in the tropical. There's on Apple Music. It's an Afro music playlist, and it's got like one of my best friends. My best friend is Jamaican, so he really introduced me to like reggae. You know, so I don't know if reggae is under listed, but that genre of reggae has my love for reggae has kind of evolved into this music scene that's Afro music types, and it's very calming. It's very I like it because it's very happy. It's like it gives me the vibe of I'm at a beach, relaxing. It's good weather. It's sunny outside, and so forth. Right there, I could send you a couple songs just for you to kind of get a good taste out of that right then and there.
We could certainly use a beach right now with the weather we got going on. It's good.
Yeah,
good
yeah.
beach.
This is actually the time I started listening to that genre, that Afro music playlist right there. It's just to kind of yeah.
There's no beach
Yeah.
opportunities during the basketball season, that's for sure.
Never, yeah, never.
All right, so it could have been playing or coaching. What was your biggest superstition?
Playing or coaching. Oh man. Oof. I think as a coach, socks.
Okay.
Socks. I gotta wear two pairs of socks.
Oh, okay.
That's a weird one.
Right.
I gotta wear two pairs of socks to be comfortable in the shoes. Because you're standing all day, you're moving.
Yeah.
It puts a little bit more cushion on the feet right there, a little bit more help on feet. So two pairs of socks, double socket.
Double socket. All right. So we got you could own any car in the world. What car would you own?
And any car in the world. Oh man, that's a good one. There's probably two cars I love ever since I was young. I need like a 1967 Chevy Cutlass. That's number one.
There you
Okay,
go.
yeah, I got so I just love those old school Cutlass, a Nova, so I'm gonna go with like a 1967 Cutlass. 1967 Cutlass. That's gonna be the car I want. And I guess the second modern day car is, I've always loved the Porsche. I always loved the Porsche. A good old coupe Porsche.
There you go.
All right. In-game dress. What do you rocking? Does it change? Do you have a certain style? What are you looking for?
My attire
like in-game,
for
what are you
game.
wearing to coach? What are you going casual?
Yeah, what's the in-game attire?
Oh yeah. So for game days, it's been I think there was only one game that I didn't do it, and I regret it. But my motto going into the year was I'm always gonna wear black, all black, black or blue. So most of the majority of games I wore all black. And two black shoes I have. I have um, a pair of nice Alexander McQueen black shoes that are very casual. And then my thing this year was I'm gonna wear black. I'm gonna coach in black Air Force Ones. Um, so lately it's been black shoes, black pants, and a black quarter zip. Right then, a black quarter zip. I think I have been using a blue quarter zip too. but I try to go with the all black, You know, I just like, and I think I got that from the NBA. A lot of NBA, they just, no matter what their colors are, they wear that all black
Right.
quarter zip, and more specifically the Miami Heat. You know, I see Miami Heat. I always feel are wearing all black. I think that's a Miami Heat too.
All right, so then we're gonna go. I added a couple just at the end. One, you talked about television shows. What was your favorite TV show from your childhood?
My favorite TV show from my childhood. Oh man. Um, well, I guess growing up as a kid, um, when you asked me that question, the first thing that jumped out to me, you know, my first love and passion was actually wrestling, the WWF. So like I was a big WWF guy before basketball. Like before I kind of took off with basketball and playing, I was so much into the WWF. I think Stone Cold, Steve Austin, and The Rock were probably my first role models. So I love wrestling. TV shows growing up. The Simpsons. You know, I was a big Simpsons guy growing up. That kind of had to play a big factor in what I watched too.
So wait a minute. Does that mean you're going to Coach Batista and telling him you want to run a wrestling practice? What do we got going?
Oh man, no man, not. I don't know if I can do that, but that's a good one though. I will let them know you said said that right
I'll
there.
tell them myself.
Yeah, you can tell them.
I don't think you're allowed to give stunners in high school wrestling. Are you, Stone Cold Stunners? I don't think that's. I think that's frowned upon. Not sure.
Yeah, man, that was my first love, my first passion. The first thing that I ever really got invested in was wrestling, the big WWF, WWE. I used to wrestle with my sisters, wrestle with my cousins. Like Stone Cold, wow. Like he was like my first role model.
That's awesome. I like that. All right, so last one. Like the craziest thing someone's yelled at you in a game. It could be something that you thought, hey, that's really good, or something great, whatever it may be. Something that you're like, oh man, what just happened there?
Man, I can't think of one on the top of my head during in like an in game that's like a negative one, but I think one that I thought was pretty funny, and I told the coaches at St. Pat's this. We're playing in the fall league, and I kept hearing people say, "Man, St. Pat's got a real good JV team. They got a real good JV team." And it was actually my Maine East varsity team, but since they saw me, they thought like, "Oh, he's still at St. Pat's, and this is what their sophomore team is." Like I thought that was hilarious. St. Pat's got a real good JV. I thought that was hilarious. That was hilarious. I think another fun one I experienced yesterday was an official after the captain's meeting came up to me and says, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And he pulled me to the side and he says, "I'm going to let you know right now, you do not have Mike Bailey's coaching box extends all the way over there. You are not Mike Bailey. Your coach's box is right here."
Oh my Lord, slow down.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So that was hilarious. It was really funny. It's always good to see when officials have a good sense of humor.
The other day I was watching the Pats Notre Dame game on stream because I couldn't make it. And there was one play. He was more on the court than the point guard. It's like, okay.
Yeah. So that was a couple of things right there. Then I can recall of just stuff you're hearing when while you're coaching.
Come coach the girls game, coach. They won't even let you take a half an inch out of the coach's box. It's ridiculous.
And then they yell at you.
Yeah,
you're on the floor.
Yeah, right. It's like, come on now. You go watch a men's game and there's guys halfway on the court, like standing there. And no, we had the coach's box. It's kind of crazy.
Well, Coach, we really enjoyed our time with you. This was a fun hour to get to know you and get to know Maine East basketball and what you're about. So thanks for jumping on with us today and really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I was shocked that I was selected. I was like, dude, I don't know. Like, by the time we do this, we could be 5-0, 6-0, or opposite. Like, but no, thanks. You guys done a good job with this. I love Brandon Bailey's and Bundy's podcast right there. I got the chance to listen to those two. It was really good. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate this.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the After the Timeout podcast in concert with the Illinois Basketball Coaches Association. Please remember to give us a 5-star rating wherever you may listen. For more show content and upcoming episodes, follow us on Twitter at After the Timeout and subscribe to our podcast for upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.